what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. Another day, another two-a-day video session for you guys. So there's just so many updates as we get closer to the Olympia. I'll try to do 2 every day going forward. But we got some physique updates, and a really interesting one we got from Urs Kalecinski at 2 weeks out, reconfirming again the main thing that we already know about Urs. His conditioning is just absolutely insultingly nasty. And I want to thank manager Matt for this update. So I believe that Urs was filming an episode of the Cutler cast in Vegas, which I think means he's in the States now indefinitely through the Olympia. So I think he's here until the Olympia is over to finish out his prep a little bit more comfortably here in the States. And I actually did talk to Matt, who posted this right after he posted, and he said that he is stupid shredded. That was Matt's exact quote. So I'm excited to see what Urs brings to the table, and I genuinely think that this year is a real possibility that Urs can crack the top 3 at the Olympia. I think he is a phenomenal classic physique competitor. He's got like the kind of that classic golden boy look. He reminds me a little bit of Tom Platz, not necessarily in terms of physique, but in terms of his stage presence and his facial look, his hair, all that stuff, kind of that perennial classic golden era blonde look to him, which I do think there's an element of. I think it's the same thing with Chris Bumstead. It's not just his physique, it's like his whole presentation, even facially, he looks classic, which does kind of sound like a stupid thing to say, and now that I've said it, but in a lot of the female divisions, how their face looks goes in, it factors into their judging. Their makeup, their hair, their suit, it's like a full package. And I feel like, obviously, classic physique is not to that same extent, but there's like a certain look in classic physique that I think it makes it a little bit stronger. And I just think Urs has that classic look. And I think he has a genuine shot at top 3. Now, next up in the news, we got a recent update from Breon Ansley as well. So all of these are going to be at 2 weeks out. So we're really getting into crunch time here as far as the proximity of the Olympia is just looming right over the horizon. And I actually do think Breon looks really good here. Now, what we know is that Breon, after this Olympia, will no longer be competing in classic physique. He's going to be moving back to 212, which is where he originally came from. And I'm curious to see what that means for this year's Olympia appearance. Because the main reason that he gave for going back to 212 was the fact that he's having trouble making weight for classic because he is a shorter guy, and shorter guys are kind of at a disadvantage if they want to come in bigger. And he says struggling with that weight cap is one of the things that's led to some of his not so good looks on stage and maybe contributed to his not so good placings in some of the recent shows. So I'm wondering, since he's already planning the move to 212, if he's already started to up his weight a little bit or try to add some size a little bit, and if that's going to impact how he looks at the Olympia this year. Because if he was already struggling with that weight cap and now he's making this transition to 212, I worry for Breon on how that's going to impact his placing. I personally just have a feeling that he's going to slip out of the top 3 this year. But honestly, I do really like how he's looking in this update. I think he looks pretty good, and I am optimistic looking at this update that he's still going to look decent for classic physique. And he's probably, I mean, he's not going to be outside of the first call-out. He's still going to be relatively, within the boundaries of the conversation. But I just don't know if he's still going to be in that top 3 conversation this year, especially with these new guys coming, making these crazy improvements. It's going to be a tough one for Breon. And a lot of people interpret that as hate or me disliking Breon, but you got to remember, we saw Breon compete in between the last Olympia and this Olympia. The last time we saw Breon was on the 2022 Arnold Classic stage, and he went up against all these other guys with the exception of Chris Bumstead. Keep in mind, Terrence won that Arnold Classic. Ramon took second, and Urs took third. Breon was behind all 3 of them in 4th place, and that was his most recent competition. So I only say that to point out he was 3rd at the last Olympia, and all those guys were behind him. But if you go with the trend in classic physique, now those guys beat Breon. So if you add Chris to that mix, and you keep that same trend from the Arnold, with those guys beating Breon at the Arnold, you would have Chris winning, Terrence in 2nd, Urs and Ramon, you could interchange them in 3rd and 4th, and that would put Breon in 5th place. Because Urs and Ramon both, to me, look like they've improved from the Arnold Classic. Breon doesn't. So I don't see any reason to believe that if they just beat Breon at the Arnold, all of a sudden they won't be able to beat him again at the Olympia. But I do think classic physique will certainly be an interesting category to watch this year. And also in classic physique, we got an update from Terrence Ruff in 3 photos here. We got a kind of variations of his favorite classic pose with like one bicep there and kind of a front lat spread on the other side, and then we got a side chest, and then kind of a side chest or front, like a front lat spread and a most muscular variation. And honestly, I don't think we're going to see Terrence succumb to anybody this year. I think Terrence is going to stay in that second place spot. Based on all the updates that I've seen from Terrence so far, I have no reason to believe he's going to slip out of second. In fact, I think you could probably make a stronger argument for him this year as pushing Chris in terms of some of the physique updates that we saw from Chris, specifically the biceps. So I really see the classic physique lineup this year as it still being between Chris and Terrence. But I think those third and fourth place spots, and then the guys cracking the top six, that's going to be more where the conversation lies, and I think that's going to be the placings where we really see some new guys take over. But based on what I've seen from Terrence, I don't see any reason to believe he's not going to be in that top two again this year. I think he looks incredible. You know, his posing is going to be on point. He doesn't appear to have any injuries. He appears to be completely on track, and I think that is a positive sign for him. And how he's going to deal with this 15 pounds of added size from Chris Bumstead, that's going to be interesting to watch. Now, next up in the news, let's talk bodybuilding a little bit. So we got a recent update from Hassan Mostafa. Now, Hassan really impressed us when he qualified for the Olympia. He won a couple of shows. He looked really good, best conditioning we've ever seen from Hassan. But I'm going to be completely honest. In this latest update that we saw from Hassan, I think he looks way off. His midsection looks blown out. And some of the updates we saw going into the shows that he won to qualify for the Olympia, he had crazy vascularity, crazy separation. He looked really dry, really hard at multiple weeks out from those shows. But this latest update, his midsection doesn't look good. He looks flat. Again, you don't really see any vascularity and not really much detail in his physique. I don't know what happened, but these updates just don't look great for Hassan. I saw a few people ask why I didn't have him in my top 10, because he did win, I think, behind Nathan Diashik, who won 3 shows in the last qualifying season. He won the most shows, maybe next to Blessing this year. So he's got a ton of muscle. He's a multiple show winner to qualify, which is impressive considering you've got a lineup here where there's 3 guys that didn't win a show, and most of the guys only won 1 show. But if this is Hassan at 2 weeks out, I really don't see him being a factor here. I don't think he's going to crack the top 10, certainly not in the conversation for top 6. Based on what I'm seeing here, I'm not really expecting much from Hassan at the Olympia. And I know that sounds harsh, but this just doesn't look like it to me. Now, if we go over to 212 a little bit, we got a recent update from Keone Pearson, where Keone, honestly, you know I hype up Keone a lot because I really like his structure, I really like his physique, and I think he's got a very classic flow to it. This is one of the more impressive updates I've seen from Keone. The roundness and the fullness that he's got in his delts, in his arms, in his chest, this looks really impressive. And I got to give props to Keone here because he found some pretty perfect goon light for this picture. But this is one of the more impressive updates I've seen from Keone from a size standpoint, becoming a little bit more competitive in the size department in 212, it looks like. But again, I think his main issue is conditioning, but he looks really good here. Keone is a guy that I would love to see win 212 Olympia, a title that I feel like this year is more up for grabs than it ever has been. And Keone's just an all-around great guy. I think he'd be a great ambassador for that title. I think he would be a great champion, and he reminds me a lot of Derek Lunsford. I think they've got very similar structures, except Derek just has a much stronger back, I think, than Keone. But that's my guy, man. Keone's the guy that I'm really rooting for in 212. I really want to see him do well. I was really disappointed with his placing last year. I think he was like 14th. But when I'm watching the Olympia from the perspective of a fan and not the perspective of just Nick Strength and Power, this is my job. When I'm watching 212, I'm going to be rooting for Keone. He's the guy that I'm excited to see. Just from a fan's perspective, I really would love to see him win this show. I like Clarita, I like Kamal, but Keone I think would be an exciting champion. If he really nails it, I think he would be a very dominant champion. And the final story that I've got for you guys today, Nick Walker. Some more physique updates from Nick today and a training video of him training abs, really putting rest to the rumors of this bubble gut that we saw from him in a posing video a couple weeks back. He's doing some hanging leg raises for abs. He looks incredible. Nick never ceases to impress me with the updates that we see from him. And I think he's got all the potential in the world to be a top 3 guy at the Olympia. Whether or not that happens this year, I don't know. I've got him in 4th in my predictions. But again, you can see in this video the point that I made. A bubble gut is not an issue, A, if you have control over your midsection in the poses and in between when you're on stage, which Nick does. But B, when you've got deep separated abs like Nick has, which is very impressive, it's not an issue because his abs look so crazy when he flexes them and controls them. It's almost a strong point for Nick. He's got some of the, if you measured, I bet, like in millimeters, the depth of each ab, how far each ab sticks out. And I'm not talking about like a distended stomach sticking out. I'm talking about the size of the muscle sticking out from his abdominal wall. I bet he's got some of the biggest, deepest abs in open bodybuilding right now. His abs are that crazy. And that's not something to be taken lightly when the only thing that people really criticize about him, aside from the veins on his legs, is the midsection. But the midsection is also a strong point for him when it's controlled and flexed. It makes him a very strong bodybuilder. It makes him a very competitive one. And Nick is another guy. Like I said, as a fan watching the Olympia, I mean, I think we know Rami's going to win. But me as a fan watching it, if Nick Walker won, that would be like the most exciting fan outcome for me. That would be the result that I would like to see. And I think I'm going to do another Olympia prediction video. Not what I think's going to happen, but what I would like to see happen as my predictions. What I would like to see the top 6 be as a fan. Not the politically correct, who do I think the judges are going to go with, what do I think the trend is going to follow, but who I would like to see win. Let me know and like this video if you would like to see me do that. But that's going to wrap it up for the video, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Again, make sure you leave a like and a comment down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.